take a stab at it. Ski is a Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Freshworks. So you can imagine the scale of operations at which he looks at. This is the 10 to $15 million stage. And what I am trying to, or what I'm going to try and do in this conversation is learn as much as possible from his experience of building out a team. Not only is a deputy CISO today, he has seen the life cycle from being at Freshworks. If I'm not wrong, he was, I think, the second or the third person who joined the security team at the time.
Maybe yeah, one of the first 10 members.
Yes. And so we not only get to see what it is like today, but also from the point that it scaled at the beginning. So hopefully we can learn from that experience. And all my questions are going to be about how to run a deal desk, or what you can call about using information security as a GTM tool, which is, these are two words which are usually not spoken of in the same sentence. So I'm going to try and learn about how we can think of cybersecurity and InfoSec as a way to actually enabling mid-market and enterprise. So there are both quite sides of this coin, and I'm hoping to learn more from it. Thanks for joining us, Ski.
Yeah, happy to share my insights and experience. Yeah.
Great. So just to kick things off, I want to, just to set context for the entire thing, I want to understand from your perspective, why is InfoSec or cybersecurity important in mid-market and enterprise deals at all? Like, let's start there, and then we'll go about asking further questions from there.
Sure. Not only mid-market and enterprise, be it any company or organization, the main work that they do is they deal with a lot of data. It could be their internal data, their employee data, or their customer data. And in most of the B2B cases, they're not only dealing with their data, it's their end customer data. So they have an obligation to protect it at any point in time. Yes, there are legal clauses which talks about it. All it takes is one incident to get the data exposed. So it carries a lot of importance because these are sensitive data. May not be as sensitive as a PCI or a HIPAA or a finance data, but still, it is a lot of data which is an IP to the company. So data protection becomes a paramount importance, and they're not having all their systems homegrown or in their own data center. So right from the product that they procure, and the product is also hosted in a data center which is not completely controlled or managed. All that they get is access to the portals, and rest of it is handled by the provider. So trust and assurance carries a major role. And one of the things that they look at it is, hey, I am going to process my data for my business case on your platform. And you are in turn not hosting on your end, you are hosting on infrastructure. So I have 3 levels of trust that I have to build, because I can trust you, but you are not completely owning it. You are dependent on other providers. So this data protection carries a major role, and hence companies tend to check all these things, and they don't stick with not only the product is good and it is meeting their requirement. And when it comes to mid-market and enterprise,
if I have to paraphrase it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, SaaS fundamentally means that. So this is great, and so for a time being, if I sort of ask myself from the shoes of a person who is what is the buyer or your customer or your prospect really looking for when they're asking you all these questions about your security or your compliance and those things? Like, what is their perspective about this? What is it that their expectations are from this process?
Okay, so the standard ask will be obviously certification and compliances, dedicated account for every customer. So it starts with how do you protect the data, and how the product is secure. So what types of control or what controls you have, this is the level of depth that they want to understand, so that being a mid-market and enterprise company, they also want to understand what is the level of layers that we have built. And they also talk about the infrastructure. What happens if things go wrong? How equipped you are? How soon you can restore the services back, and what is your uptime and availability? So fundamentally, they focus on the data, product, and the infrastructure. So these are the 3 areas that I get asked questions. And then the overall governance, how do you handle all these things, what compliances you have, which is to vet whether whatever you are having is as per industry standard. And yeah, I can tell all that I have as a security person. They always have someone a third party to come and tell, yes, this company has whatever the security team says. So that's the compliance piece and the third party audit reports.
This seems like a lot of information that they are seeking. How should I, as a person who's trying to win this deal, how can I be better prepared to be able to answer these questions and give confidence to my prospects or my customers that, we have everything that's required in place? And, is there a format in which they expect these answers? Can I sort of preempt some of these things? How should I prepare for this?
Okay, so the format that they ask varies from customer to customer. Even though there are like industry standard questionnaires, you have SIG, you have CAIQ, which are standard questionnaires which you should have it as a pre-fill. But every company has their own processes depending upon the industry they are. If it's a fintech and healthcare, they will have their own specific questions to be answered. So from your end, you should be prepared to answer all those questions. From a format standpoint, have pre-filled industry accepted questionnaires, which goes most of the times. So they might not end up sharing you more questionnaires from their end if it answers all of them. So having a pre-filled security questionnaire, which is industry accepted, like the SIG and CAIQ, is something that's a must to have. And obviously your certification and compliances that you have, like ISO, SOC 2, depending upon PCA and HIPAA, will add value. But if you have to give it, all these have to be literally put in as a pitch. So information security or cyber security also should be present in a format that the customer can understand. And here I have two personas here. One, the business user who may not understand the deep level security, and then comes the second level who is like deep dive. So I'll have to first win this person, get this assurance, say we have everything. So the best way is talk about all these areas. How do you protect data? How do you protect your product? And what do you have on your infrastructure? And how do you run all these 24/7? Because bringing in controls, having the required controls in place is easy. Maintaining it 24/7 for the ever-changing threats and whatever that is happening in day-to-day, anything that is newly coming up, that's the key challenge. Consistency is something that we need to maintain. So a typical, if I have to go and present to someone at the CISO level or the head of IT, I always go with the one slider which talks about all these things. So a typical high-level standpoint on, hey, what are the data security controls, product security controls, could be visible features and back-end like encryption and what do they have it, and what are the infrastructure, where are we hosted, what options do you have as a customer to host, and how do we support uptime and availability. And then we finish with, hey, these are the controls that we have, and these are also attested by industry standard compliances, which you can have. So a website which says all those things. And another way is to have these documents readily available for them to share it. Because my experience is the sales cycle can go larger for mid-market and enterprise in general. And having a security due diligence will increase the sales cycle. So this is something that I realized, and if I have to really contribute in closing the deal, the dependency with cybersecurity should be less, and I should have all these things handy. But this is at a very high level. Still, you might be asked questions or given documents. So that is something that it's inevitable. At least you'll have like a 10%. They'll be say, okay, I got all your questions. You have the templates. I have the PPT. You have the certificates. Still, please fill this questionnaire is something that you cannot avoid.
Who is, let's say, in this journey, and I have like now a steady stream of mid-market enterprise deals or deals of any size, but in general where there are security questions that are being asked. How do I, as a company, it seems like this requires constant and dedicated work, and it's not something that I can just wing when the request comes in. So it sounds like I might need a team dedicated to handle these kind of requests and basically be able to handle the queries as they come. Like you mentioned, these start becoming blocking hurdles in my sales cycle, and the quicker the turnaround time around this, the shorter the sales cycle will become. So it seems like I should do something to be prepared for this and have somebody who can look at this. How do I go about building that team? Like, what are some of the first hires that I should be looking to make here? And how do I, let's say I'm at ground zero right now where I do nothing about this. Like, how do I start thinking about this? How do I start planning for this?
Okay. So I think I'll give two different answers if you're ground zero, which means you haven't done anything on security, and your first part of the question where you have sizable, you need to have someone who can give the high level vision of, hey, this is where we need to start and this is where we need to go. So this combination is definitely needed if you are at ground zero, because it all depends on how do you want to scale and the type of customers and markets that you land. So all of a sudden you might end up with a big customer which you don't want to lose. And if you have only one person who is all groundwork, you don't have someone who can go and talk, set the vision, hey, these are the things that is expected. So while you need that groundwork person, you also need someone who has that experience, who can dynamically set things, hey, these are the things that is needed. So that's a great start. And then you go from where. And one of the major things which we don't see often is start security at the earliest. So we call it shift left. The earlier you talk about security, the more advantage for you. So if I have to put it, I would look into the security right from designing the product architecture. Even if it's your MVP stage, or like you're looking on to design the product and someone from your CTO or engineering head is looking into it, I would be wanting to look at from that perspective so that I can solve a lot of challenges at the early stage, make the design scalable, which means I'm not going to put in everything at day one or in my first 2 years. But I design the architecture in such a way, if I want to scale, I end up doing minimal changes. It's not like completely reorganizing or re-architecting your platform to capable of scaling and mid-market and handling large volumes. So that is one as a ground zero level. For someone like you have good number of customers, but you are getting mid-market and enterprise, which is typically 5 years before for me. So we handled a lot of mid-market and enterprise customers, and it's not like one customer at a time. You have like at least 10 to 15 mid-market or enterprise customers who are coming up with questionnaires. Unless and until I am not equipped, I'll not be able to give the turnaround quickly. So that's why we created a dedicated team. While you'll have the mainstream security folks who handle policies, procedures, application security testing, these guys are like, they have the security knowledge and kind of having the sales skill to talk to customers, the sales language that they can understand, go and work with them, give the input. So basically it's like, you can consider like how a sales and pre-sales will go and talk to the customer about the product. These guys will go and talk security, because the receiving audience is nothing but a security person, not a business person. And we give all these things. We give the predefined templates and collaterals and give all the certifications, which creates a bigger impact. And we also proactively go and tell these people, hey, what are the things that are expected in security, which most of us don't do, because, hey, let the business evaluation phase happen. And we end up at the last minute. Everything is done, and you can think of like, hey, it's a quarter in and the salesperson wants to close the deal, and the business is also happy to get the order signed. They go to their procurement team, hey, we want to onboard this product. Then, hey, there is a workflow. You have to go and contact your security team, and they give, hey, we are not going to approve unless and until we get this 10 things or 15 things, which means it's not a quarter-end deal for the salesperson. So how can I go and influence this so that we close the deal? It's like we started, hey, if there are any security, let us know. This is the page that you can refer. These are the bunch of documents, certificates, and pre-filled questionnaires. So they start parallelly. This creates not only the faster turnaround, it builds the trust, because we are proactively talking about security. And it increases a lot of trust because, okay, yeah, they are very open about it, transparent about it, and they're happy to have all the questions here. So that changes the entire behavior of the customer and increases the trust. So these are the two different cycles.
That's actually a great segue into something I wanted to, a team that's focused on enabling and unblocking deals, while there's a separate team who is focused on primarily ensuring that you're doing the right things as far as security is concerned. But communicating and demonstrating that to your customers and prospects is a task in itself. And what basically Ski is saying, that there is a team required to do that, and that helps you unblock your deals, move it faster along, and that's the thing that actually gives you like an ROI on all the things that you're doing for your security, or at least immediate gratification about those things that you're doing. So Ski, my next question is related to that GTM InfoSec team. Is there in your mind, is there a point in time when I should think about building this team out? Is there a good time? And if and when I do this, how do I, are there metrics that I should be looking at as a way that this team is performing, and how well they are doing, or how many deals they're influencing? So I'm just curious, how do you go about thinking about this GTM InfoSec team?
Okay, so the moment you are targeting heavy on your mid-market and enterprise, you should definitely think of this team. So that's how the idea also emerged in Freshworks, where the head of sales and the pre-sales were not able to provide a lot of turnaround. And just because security was involved, it was creating a lot of delays. And the existing security team was already having a lot of priority because they have to get controls implemented, policies written, and we have a continuous audit cycle, ISO, SOC 2, multiple products, and all those things needs to be there. So there is always a bandwidth that was required. And think of the pace that we are selling in mid-market and enterprise as a multi-product company. So we started with a 1 or 2 member team. So I was one of the initial member of this team, where I used to run pillar to post, get all the info, and start responding to questionnaires. And when we saw this, we also were able to realize that there were many such deals which were on the pipeline and were slowed down because they didn't have this person. Because the faster the turnaround, and we are also a global team. So say someone is in the US, the customer is sending the questionnaire. I don't want that to wait for the India team to wake up and all those things. So that's where we decided, hey, let's operate how the sales team is operating. So we had like a 3-member team, and we named it as the go-to-market information security team because they work with the go-to-market. So they will be on the sales floor, working with the sales, pre-sales, customer success, and support, which means technically anyone who is facing the customer, and if they are having a security-related query, they need not wait for the actual security team. They forward it to them. These guys respond immediately. We were able to close questions on time. Deals were getting closed on faster. So this experiment worked well. So how do we go mainstream? So it involved a lot of education and metrics as well. So we had to bring in, hey, if you have any questions on security, put to this team. And we were operating 24/5. And the metrics that we were able to showcase are 2 different metrics. One, how many deals were closed in a specific quarter, irrespective of whether it is involving security or not. Say, for example, there are like 5,000 deals that were closed out of the 15,000 or 20,000 deals in the pipeline. Out of the 5,000 deals, how many deals were InfoSec was involved? So the percentage was at least 30 to 40%. So which means all those 30 to 40% had direct interaction. Either we filled questionnaires, we went on a call, explained the posture, and we also dealt like multiple calls with them, which reduced the turnaround time and also were able to close the deals on time. So the metric that we were able to generate was how many customers reached out to us for security from the overall deal pipeline, how many deals were won, and we also had an interesting metric, how many deals were lost in the quarter, how many deals were lost because of security. So we were able to bring down to less than 0.5%. And the reasons for the lost deals were like, hey, you don't have a data center in Middle East and Africa, or you don't have a data center in Canada, which is not like more of a, hey, we didn't represent InfoSec properly, or it's not like we didn't give the assurance interest. It was more of a market ask. So this is how the metric, and we were able to influence revenue on it. On the other hand, it's not only the prospects or new buyers who come and talk about security. Existing mid-market and enterprise customers will have to do an annual due diligence, whether I should retain this supplier, how are they performing. So they also, their question has also something got flown into this team. So this team became a single point of contact for any cybersecurity needs, be it prospects or existing customers. For existing customers, if there are any churn that is anticipated, and if the churn is due to cybersecurity, this team goes and talks to them and understand and provide them the assurance. And we also started providing inputs to the product roadmap. Hey, think of a metric like, hey, this many prospects and existing customers are asking for this feature in the product. And we were able to put into the product team by doing a competitor analysis. Hey, these are the features from a security standpoint. It's been asked by this prospects. This is the amount of revenue that you can tap in. And these existing customers are also asking for the same, which means you can avoid churn. And when I do a competitor analysis, they are also providing or not providing. Depending upon what the competitor has, I am able to put a story to my chief product officer and influence the product roadmap, eventually influencing the overall revenue. So this is the cycle we underwent.
This is really fascinating. I don't think we see too many scenarios where product or security not only influences the product roadmap, but is actually at the front lines of earning business for your company, rather than thought of typically as a back-end function where your job is to potentially protect the company from external threats. But this is adding real dollars into the company's kitty, and then the way Ski mentioned about how you measure the effectiveness of this team by looking at deals that are influenced by like some sort of a security credential check that happens.
True. So it influenced my metric to the board as well. For example, if I don't have this team, so a typical metric would be how many certifications we have got this year and how many certifications that we have maintained. How many, from a technical security standpoint, what are the security features that we rolled out? How many issues or vulnerabilities that we identified which could have caused an attack? And obviously I have my cloud security and SOC. On the other side, I just will put a simple metric. Hey, we have enabled this percentage of the overall revenue of this quarter. And from a budgeting standpoint, I'm able to give back the budget that is spent on the entire InfoSec team as a return on investment. So cybersecurity as a return on investment is something that we were able to do.
So any of you here struggling to find budgets for your security efforts? Ski just gave you like a good way of talking about it with board and CEOs, where like they would want to know a business impact of this thing, and like talking about it in terms of this is how you actually help improve the top line of the company is something that will get you perked up ears a lot more as compared to saying this is like a cost that you're going to add to the whole thing. So that's a great way of looking at it, Ski. Thanks for sharing that. I have run through most of the questions that I had in mind about what I wanted to discuss with Ski. I'm happy to leave the
hand over us the user data. But yes, we do come across their flows, their journey, which is very critical and very, very specific to the organizations we are serving. We never realized the compliances domain. They are in fintech. So they started to demand a lot of things from us. They wanted us to sign a lot of NDAs and promise them so many things. We can't even use their names and on our collaterals, on our website. And they wanted even our employees, our designers to sign up some papers and NDAs, all that stuff. So now that working with Pine Labs, we are term loan, flexi loans, supply chain financing, all those kind of loans. So they already have those products out in the market. We are redesigning them and supporting them. So we have a purchase order for more than a year from them. So this is like the big deal. Now this gives us confidence we can have more of such customers. So this becomes important, what you just talked about. So how would that be changed in terms of my perspective? Because we are a services company and we do not deal with so much data. But we deal with the data which is very, very proprietary to the company, not of their users' data, but their own flow, their own discoveries, their own ideas, how are they doing about it. So what are your ideas on how should I be planning to look more informed about their own information security when I pitch to them?
Think of it of a scenario, since these are design, more related to IP.
Absolutely.
What if it gets leaked? Someone will use the same design, put a different name, and start selling it, right? So this is more often, as you said, there is no data involved, which means user data or PIA, but these are design flows, usability, and the look and feel of it, which is like more of an IP. So protecting the IP is more responsible for Pine Labs. And since you are someone who is giving the output of what they are visualizing, you have even more the equal responsibility, because they might be protected with their workflows, but how you are storing and how you are handling is the reason for why they come to you for all those things. Because end of the day, it's not data, it's business IP. So they don't want anyone to use the same design or it gets leaked out in the market. And if it's a very unique design and if it's also IP, so that's a great loss, IP loss and also a reputation loss.
And I think that can also help us look very, very distinct from the other guys in the market, because we take their information security very, very seriously, and we are proactively telling them rather than waiting for them to tell us, okay, what about this?
Yeah,
You're
so
right that it all happens at the procurement level. When the procurement guy is signing up the bill, then he asks, okay, did you...
the environment that you're operating, not more about the typical SaaS work way. And be it managed services or service provider or a product, end of the day, that only the environment changes, the data protection still applies. So what you should do is tell more of how you handle their material or designs or architecture, worldwide accepted standard, and it is not specific to one industry. So it applies to any industry and any company. So that's the good place to. Any solution will always improve the process. For someone, I have like close to 13, 14 years of experience. I have underwent a lot of transformation from doing everything manual to systems. So it is helpful for me and helpful for the customers. The only thing which I'll be focused about is how the data is being used. True. There are a lot of solutions where you can take you can also leverage the public language model, and you can also have your own language model. And you have a lot of providers like Azure and all those people who have their own private language model. And you can also customize in such a way that whatever data that I am processing gets processed only within my company or within my account. So that's the engineering work that I need to do. So this is something that we have recently launched as well. So the idea is how we can have a private environment where the data doesn't get shared, but the questionnaire gets filled quickly. So which means instead of taking 8 hours to fill a 300 question questionnaire, which is very normal on a day-to-day life cycle, it can be completed in like 2 hours. So this is the way where we are thinking of, but we are also being very careful of where the data is processed. Is it like shared it outside? But yeah, definitely yes.
And you're definitely looking at upskilling your team too.
Yes. So think of it of having a training to look into the prompts of how do we get answers. So that's a typical training.